The International Newsnet World Report is a national television news show available in more than 30 million homes. We broadcast daily real news the networks won't tell you. We are solely viewer-supported. That means you. You can donate at our website, INNWorldReport.net. We hope you find the following interview informative and helpful.
Yesterday, about 300 Iraqi oil industry workers assembled in Basra to protest the draft oil law that would allow production sharing agreements with foreign energy firms. Hassan Juma Awad al-Assadi, president of the IFOU, charges that the proposed oil law surrenders Iraq's economic sovereignty to multinational oil companies and said, quote, "We will lose control over Iraqi oil. Therefore, the social progress in Iraq will be curtailed substantially because the oil companies want huge profits. They are not concerned about the environment, wages, or living conditions." We're now joined on the phone by REPORT-Raed Jarrar, who is with the American Friends Service Committee. Welcome to INN, Raed.
Thank you very much for having me.
Raed, this has been a process. At first, the Iraqi people didn't know what the hydrocarbon law, as we call it, is. Are the Iraqi people becoming more aware of this law, and what are their feelings about it?
Yes, you are right. Despite the very big and expensive campaign to try to confuse the Iraqi public opinion about this law, the same way that the administration and the multinational companies are trying to confuse the U.S. public opinion about it. Despite that, it seems like a majority of the Iraqi legislators and a majority of the Iraqi union workers are taking very strong stands against this oil law because they realize that it's not in the interest of their country.
You're in Washington, D.C. You base yourself out of Washington, D.C. When you found out that the Democrats as well as the Republicans fully supported this as one of the benchmarks of progress in Iraq, how did you feel about it, and are the Iraqi people aware that both parties in America are for taking their oil?
Based on my beliefs that the Democratic and Republican foreign policy in Iraq and many other countries in the Middle East is identical. There is no difference between the Democratic and Republican foreign policy in Iraq. Based on this belief, I wasn't very shocked when the democratically led Congress signed on the benchmarks that the president put. And one of these benchmarks is passing the Iraqi oil law. Despite all of my attempts and many other workers in D.C., lobbyists and workers in the peace and justice movement, all of our effort to educate and inform the Congress members that this is a tragic move that will lead to increasing violence in Iraq because the Iraqis will start viewing the U.S. as the country that destroyed their country and occupied them just to steal their oil. So it will increase the levels of violence in Iraq, and it will not be in the interest of anyone except multinational oil companies. Despite all of these attempts, we failed to convince the Congress members to change their stance.
We've heard this before. Let's look at how the legislative process works within Iraq. We know that the Iraqi parliament is going to be going on recess in August. They don't want to tackle this until the fall. Every day there seems to be more resistance growing to passing this law. Right now, how is the Iraqi parliament basically, what are the numbers within the Iraqi parliament supporting it, not supporting it, and is it shifting, more people against it or more people for it?
The Iraqi government is kind of divided between the control of the Iraqi nationalists who control the parliament, more or less, and the Iraqi separatists who control the Iraqi Ministers' Council and the Presidential Council. So the Presidential Council and the Ministers' Council passed the law that the Bush administration wanted them to pass in some few days. They didn't have any resistance to that because they are employees for this Bush administration in Iraq. They can't argue with it. But the Iraqi parliament has been resisting this law for the last 8 or 9 months. And because of the efforts of the Iraqi nationalists in the parliament, Sunnis and Shia and Christian and Kurdish nationalists, because of their strong resistance to this unfair law, this law hasn't passed yet.
The Maliki administration, are they for this law? Do they think that this is a reasonable trade for American security, the Americans providing security? Or has the Maliki government sided with, I guess I'd have to say, their constituents that voted them into office?
The Maliki government, of course, it sees this law as a good bargain because they have two options. One of them is to follow what the Bush administration wants them to do, and therefore they can stay in power. And the other option, they can resist the Bush administration's agenda in Iraq, and they will be fired from their positions by the Bush administration. So that's why they will pass anything that the Bush administration will ask them to pass, regardless whether this is in the interest of Iraq or the interest of the Iraqis or not. This is not a part of the issues that they consider before supporting or not supporting any law.
Let me go out on a limb here, and have we created a multi-level system in Iraq, almost a class system in which if you're a supporter of the Bush administration, you will be rewarded in that, in a way, the will of the Iraqi people is irrelevant to what's going on? Has this become a situation where those in power, that have been put in power with the aid of the Bush administration, are now going to be given the rewards, and it doesn't really matter that we call it a democracy, it really is just power sharing?
Yes, what the Bush administration has created in Iraq is a very small dictatorship that is hiding inside the green zone and doesn't have any support or contact with things outside the green zone, the red zone, the real Iraq. So these people hiding in the green zone and getting their support directly from the Bush administration, getting their orders directly from the Bush administration,